What if I devoted my life to one of its feathers? The feathers in this poem by the artist Cecilia Vicuña belong to a hummingbird, an animal that symbolizes for several indigenous communities in the Americas rebirth after difficult times. In the middle of our current reality, the need to confront social and ecological challenges is urgent. What can art contribute to these challenges? What paths could art open for reflecting about the ways we relate to other forms of life and living? These are some of the questions woven in the works in this exhibition. The exhibition is exciting, and it is not very common in Vienna or in Europe to have the possibility to access the work and reflections of so many artists across the world, and so many mestizo and indigenous artists from Amazonian, Andean, and Mesoamerican worlds. Works that reveal the importance of communal living and of human and non-human ancestral knowledge. The Shipibo Conibo artist Olinda Silvano embroiders the teachings of master plants in Kenet textiles that use the textile patterns to explain elements of relationality between oneself and the larger community of beings. What plants and master plants teach about life, showing reality in its bare essentials. Her work centers spirituality not only as an alternative form of knowing, but also as a political relation and an alternative way of world-making. Santiago Yahuarcani paints as a way to preserve and document the spiritual world of the Huitotos, to which he belongs. His series show the impact of COVID-19 on the Amazonian communities and indigenous strategies for survival, such as returning to cultivate the land and the shaman's efforts to find medicinal treatment in the master plants in the forest. Then there is the work of Amanda Piña, which asks what might happen if corporate extractivism continues to be allowed to wreak life, affecting a large multiplicity of ecosystems and modes of living. She calls upon a series of body languages performed by those coexisting with the mountain. She approaches dancing as a body-based knowledge that maintains an active relationality with the whole of the cosmos. The sewn textiles of Sophie Utical address the effects of the pandemic on several levels, the sensations of belonging and the challenge of isolation and displacement, but also and especially the power of communal affective work in building ourselves. The exhibition shows as well the work of the Afro-Peruvian artist Victoria Santa Cruz, who through her 1978 poem, They Yell at Me Black, reconstructs through powerful lyrics her experiences as a Black woman and her road into self-knowledge. For Santa Cruz, knowledge involves necessarily the body. So this self-realization of finding the key to self-knowledge in her poem is by necessity rhythmic, since rhythm is key to finding ourselves in sync with the whole, as it occurs with music and dancing. For Santa Cruz, we live with a predisposition to fall in an education that is centered on the head. For her, dancing and music are part of life, learned from life and enacted for the purpose of living. The large format painted portraits of Amoako Boafo deal with self-validatory identity as a space of resistance, and aesthetics of Black self-love and critical masculinity as transformational. Another work that caught my eye was the photograph performances of Castiel Vitorino Brasileiro, which read to me as a direct reclaim of a bodily connection to nature, and where plants perform as human body parts. For example, a banana stem as a vertebral column, displaying a collaboration with what we call nature and the way in which nature repeats forms and functions. Works like those of Daniela Ortiz take representational tools of colonization and turn them around. As with her children's books that employ colonial images that are then recontextualized by her to explain systemic structures of social injustice, but also celebrate counter stories of community making. The take of Germain Machuca on Call's painting, The Two Fridas, brings another meaning to the way queer bodies are confronted to constant violence. In parallel, in Dressing Up in Drag, there is a reclaim of bodies that might have wounds and cracks, but whose looks are still fabulous, where fabulousness mimics the language of life, the language of flowers and of colorful blossoming, as a language of joy and of resistance of queer racialized bodies. I suspect that we should see this exhibition not only as an alternative answer to hegemonic discourse and modern narratives, because this would mean to think of two poles that oppose each other. But we don't live in two poles. We live in porous, multiple worlds that coexist, that are made by threads of human and non-human stories, and that have constantly been affecting and impacting each other. We live in different realities, and our aesthetic histories are multiple. I have encountered in this exhibition art that is resonant and embroiders forms and meanings in layers, art that transforms us with the energy it spreads, art that intertwines with political activism and lived experience, art that produces pollinating meaning that keeps systems in motion.